Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Speedtalks, the podcast about everything tech in the financial services industry and beyond. The topic of today's episode is PM, QA, BA. Who are they and what do they bring to IT projects? Okay, the idea about this episode is to talk about something that is often overlooked in discussions about software development. Who is needed in a project besides developers, besides the engineers that are actually doing the coding? In this episode, I will explore the key non-development roles such as project manager, business analyst, quality assurance tester, and UX designer. What do they do? What value do they bring to the project? How much do they cost? And is it really worth paying for them? The first question that we usually get is, why is a development team alone not enough? The fact is that development teams excel at writing code, but for a project to succeed, someone needs to manage the priorities, manage business requirements, and manage the quality. That's where PMs, BAs, QAs, and UX designers come in. You can't just lock developers in a room and expect them to gather requirements, design the project, develop it, test it, and maintain constant communication with the clients. That's a recipe for disaster. The truth is, IT projects are complex, more complex usually than expected. They require not just coding, but also doing the analysis, doing the testing, doing the risk management, and good proper communication along the road. Without these elements, even the best programmers out there may struggle to deliver a valuable product. All right, let's briefly go through who are these specialists and what do they do. That will shed more light on the whole aspect. Firstly, project manager called PM. This is someone who's managing the project in a nutshell. A PM ensures that the project is delivered on time, within the budget, and according to client expectations. Without a PM, chaos can emerge. Tasks may not be properly assigned, risks may not be identified on time, and so on and so forth. A PM is also the main point of contact between the client and the team. They are managing communication, they are overseeing developers' time, they are coordinating the entire project. The client does not have to personally track whether the work is progressing as planned. The PM does it for them. That's their responsibility. Why is it worth including a PM and paying for a PM? Because they help preventing delays. They help with communication issues. They mitigate the organizational chaos. Clients who skip having a PM often lose control of the project. The PM ensures everything runs smoothly because that's the responsibility. They are managing the project. Rarely or only at a certain small scale, developers are able to manage themselves and assign tasks to themselves. But that's usually a recipe for chaos and disaster. Moving on, business analyst called the BA. They are translating business needs into the technical language. A BA helps the client to understand what they really need, not just what they think they want. Oftentimes, customers approach us with a concept that is supposed to take them to the goal, help them reach the goal they have in front of them. But the path to that goal needs to be, let's say, oftentimes revamped. With a BA, the team gets clear requirements, that is reducing the risk of developing something that does not meet business expectations. Without the BA, the project scope can be miscalculated, and that leads to delays and unnecessary costs and frustration and just tears. A BA is basically a bridge between the business and the technology and the, let's say, end user expectations. They are gathering the business requirements and translating them into technical specification, user stories that the team can work with. So on a daily basis, when the developer starts work in the morning, they would open up, let's say, a system such as Jira, and they would see what tasks are assigned to them. And they just start coding based on a user story that is prepared beforehand by a BA. So they don't have to think about what's my task for today? Why am I doing this button here? What's the purpose of this button? Because the BA already understood beforehand what's the purpose of that particular feature, and how is it serving the, let's say, end user goals and expectations and the stakeholder expectations, and then that has been then translated into the, say, technical aspects for the coding purposes. So why is it worth paying for a BA, including the BA? Because they minimize errors from the start, which can otherwise cost tens of thousands usually. They ensure that the final product meets both business needs and user expectations and is feasible from the technical perspective. That's a win-win-win kind of situation. Quality assurance, tester ensuring quality, that is I think the most straightforward out of these roles. Usually customers are aware that they need to have a high quality product. High quality means different things in different projects. But basically QA is not about just clicking through or manually or automatically through an application. They do ensure the product functions correctly and is free of bugs. They catch errors before your client will. So that's definitely beneficial. Without a QA, users may encounter bugs and errors that render the product unusable in some cases. So why is it worth paying for a BA? Because fixing bugs post-release is always much, much more expensive than catching them before going live. High software quality translates into A, business stability, B, lower maintenance cost, and C, better user satisfaction, ensuring that basically nothing critical fails when users rely on your product when they use it actually live. Last but not least, there's a UX designer who are creating the user experience or user interface. A designer ensures the product is intuitive, is easy to use, and meets the user needs. It may sound pretty straightforward, but at the end of the day, it is very complicated. Poor UX can make even the best product go unused. So they would understand what is the purpose of using the product in, let's say, in a scenario for each user. They will design the product to be usable for that sake and from that context and point of view of a certain user. They will, let's say, design the whole client experience, how they interact with the product, what they click on, what is clickable, what is not clickable, how is information being presented, how is the look and feel of the whole product, etc. So why is it worth paying for an UX? Because a well-designed interface leads to higher conversion rates and higher user satisfaction. So what's the point of having a product that users don't know how to use and it doesn't meet the expectations and looks outdated? So there's no point in that. So what should my team composition look like in a perfect scenario? So if we're, for example, building a team from scratch, a typical team would consist of, let's say, the core of developers, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, whatnot. That would be covered by at least one tester per each 2, 3 developers to ensure adequate test coverage. The work of development team would be supplemented by a BA who would either at the beginning of the project whilst the project is ongoing, work on the requirements. And then the project would be the actual development would be preceded by the design phase of a UX designer, and that would be end-to-end managed by a PM with effectively streamlining the delivery of the project. Some of the other roles may not be 100% FTE engaged. So let's say a mid-small team would only need a quarter of a PM or a half of a PM's FTE. Same with, for example, business analyst or a designer. But let's say a full-fledged Scrum team of around 8 people would be 4 developers, 2 testers, an analyst, and a PM. That would be, let's say, the best practice. Naturally, if you already have a part of your team and you just need to fill in the gaps, that's also possible. But let's say talking about collaboration models is a topic of not exactly this episode. So a common question we usually get at this point is, are these roles included in the prices, or do I pay separately for them? So it really very much depends on the cooperation model. In time and materials model, they are billed separately. In a fixed price model, the provider, I'm 100% sure every IT provider will include them in the estimate because they know the project cannot function without them properly. So in many companies, I would say in any serious company, PM, BA, QA, designer roles are always a part of the standard project teams. Sometimes, however, they are optional, specifically in, let's say, smaller scales, less complicated situations, but it's always a trade-off. If you get rid of a BA, you risk having a misaligned product with the expectations of the market. If you get rid of a designer, you risk having a product that will be unusable. If you get rid of the QA, you risk the quality and increase the the risk of bugs and faulty situations in the project. If you take out the PM, that may end up in the chaos in the ongoing project. As said, the good thing is that oftentimes they don't need to be 100% involved in your project, and their costs usually compared to developers are usually cheaper. So I would expect, for example, a QA to be cheaper or comparable to a front-end developer. I know some companies do have a policy when they price the same for the developer and for the QA. That's not the case at SpeedNet. I believe around 20-30% lower price compared to a front-end developer would be a standard, more or less, for a QA. When you look at the PMs and BAs and the likes of designers, you would see them almost never north of a senior backend developer, but usually around 20-30% below that, what someone would charge for a senior backend developer. So again, it's important to remember that cutting costs on these roles will always lead to greater expenses later in forms of bugs, delays, and any inefficiencies in the project. So at SpeedNet, we often work with these roles as the part of the team from the very beginning, as we know, and we have seen that many times, that they make projects more predictable and they increase the chance for success. And that's basically what we are after. So were I to wrap things up, I would say that it's important to highlight that PMs, BAs, QAs, and UX designers are not unnecessary costs, but they are oftentimes the key members of a project, just as important as developers. A full-fledged, let's say, serious IT projects will not go around without having them on board. Their presence reduces risks, increases efficiency, and results in a better product and in a more predictable delivery of that product. So if you're planning an IT project, it is worth considering including these roles, as they can bring significant value, as you've just heard me explaining for the last 15 minutes. Right, that was it. Thank you, and see you in the next episode. Cheers.